Welcome to Recap Geeks. This is your host Dave, and today we're recapping The Witcher Season 2. Now, before we begin, if you haven't watched Season 1, I've done a recap on that one. I'll leave a link in the description box. Please have a watch of that first before coming back and watching this video. And now, on to the recap. In Episode 1, we begin where we left off in Season 1. Geralt is still under the impression that Yennefer died during the Battle of Sodden. So Geralt is now on his way to the Witcher's headquarters, Kaer Morhen, with his Child of Surprise hot at his heels and under his firm protection every step of the way. I think we can clearly see from the very first scene how close the pair have grown and how much the princess looks up to the father she never had. En route to the headquarters, they stop at an old friend of Geralt's, and the episode plays out like a weird scene out of Beauty and the Beast, only with a much more terrifying ending. Meanwhile, Yennefer is still being imprisoned and bound in chains by Nilfgaardian soldiers. She's lost all of her powers, and all in all, things aren't looking great for the once powerful mage. Of course, Yennefer's primary kaput is her old school friend, Fringilla, so she kind of has the upper hand here, and it's looking like she may be able to use her position to manipulate her old friend. In Episode 2, the princess and the Witcher finally make it to the Witcher's retreat. However, it's back with Yen where the main focus lies in this episode. Yen and Fringilla have been captured by elves, and we see that Filandrel, once king of the elves, now answers to Francesca Findabair, an eye-opener for Yen, who has always sought to gain more power and now sees how easily it can be taken away. Yennefer has a dream at the start of the episode and foresees herself starting a family with Geralt, something that isn't far from the truth of how their lives will become. She then goes on to have an audience with Francesca and Filandrel, where they realise they've all been experiencing the same omens in which the deathless mother has shown herself in various forms, which is when Yen decides to reveal her elven heritage. However, her lack of empathy and experience with the elves in the past meant they dismissed her claim of origin. Yen is lost and powerless and mourns the loss of her previous powerful self. I think at this point, she would do just about anything to get it back. Meanwhile, Geralt discovers that one of his former friends and fellow witches has been possessed by a mutated Lishi, putting Ciri in grave danger. After fighting off and killing the monster with his father figure, Vesemir, Geralt begins to see the hard truth that Ciri cannot be protected all her life, and nowhere is safe. He must help her and train her to use her power and find her destiny. Episode 3 is set 3 months on after we see a brief montage of Ciri and Geralt's time together in training. Vesemir and Geralt are still mourning the loss of Eskel, and it brings them even closer than they were before, as they share the burden of having to kill their old friend, who was more like a brother and son to the pair. Yennefer goes to visit Tissaia, who is delighted to see her old student after believing she died at Sodden. She seems a lot more warming and gentle towards Yennefer, a far cry from the stern bully we encountered in the first series. It doesn't take long before she realises that Yen has lost her magic. Despite Tissaia trying her damnedest to protect Yen from the Brotherhood, it's no good, and Yen must make an execution to prove her loyalty. However, being the rebel she is, Yen makes a run for it at the last minute with the man she was meant to execute, Cahir, though it's not him she's saving, it's herself. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ciri is determined to grow strong, train and learn the agility and capability of the men around her. In other words, she wants to be a Witcher. Her first few attempts at the obstacle course were certainly a bit of a laughingstock. However, I think this is just the start, and I'm sure we're yet to see a lot more from this princess. I couldn't wait to watch Episode 4 when I read about the return of Jaskier, because he's probably one of my favourite characters in the entire show, aside from Geralt, of course. Instead of being simply a singer alongside Geralt this time, he comes with a purpose, and that purpose is smuggling elves to safety. I just loved the reunion with Yennefer. It was raw, emotional, and touched on some of their comedic banter from the first series. And this time they share something in common. They've both lost someone dear to them, Geralt. Back at Kaer Morhen, Triss has arrived and taken Ciri under her wing. I think she was lacking a female touch after being in the company of all those witches for so long. Triss is still pretty traumatised after the events that unfolded at Sodden, so she's happy to be in a familiar environment and feel protected. However, she's curious about the powers Ciri holds. Yennefer and Cahir are now in hiding and are quickly running out of options. I think we see a glimpse of a soft side to Cahir here when he chooses not to abandon Yen after discovering she no longer has any powers. In Episode 5, we hear Vesemir tell Triss that Ciri has elder blood. Triss does not agree with the idea of using her blood to create more Witcher mutagen. However, when Ciri learns of her bloodline, she's quick to put herself forward. This could put the princess's life in extreme danger though, but Ciri believes this is something that must must do to make up for the lives that have been lost in a pursuit. I mean, come on, Ciri, it's not your fault you're in such a high demand. Triss and Ciri start to delve deeper into Ciri's past, and the princess is eager to learn more about the parents she never knew. We see a dying elf holding a baby in one of their visions, and when Triss tries to soothe the elf, she prophesies that the child will destroy the world. Is she talking about Ciri or her own baby? Either way, Ciri is frightened by this and calls for her protector, Geralt. Geralt is miles away, trying to figure out what happened to the monolith near Cintra that opened up when Ciri screamed the night she escaped. This is where the strange monsters have been emerging from and targeting Ciri. Before Geralt hears the desperate calls from Ciri, he also learns that Yennefer is still alive from her ex-partner Istrid, the mage who has accompanied Geralt on his mission. Despite all this going on, for me, Yennefer's and Jaskier's banter and growing friendship is still the headliner for me in this episode. I love the humour and the bond they're forming. I think after Jaskier has been kidnapped by the fire-wielding mage and she pretends to be his drunk wife to rescue him was brilliant. In episode 6, I think we've all been waiting for this, all three main characters back together again. But at the same time, the most heartbreaking scene was presented to us when Geralt's pride and joy and friend, his horse Roach, was sliced to death by a monster. Ciri is reluctantly travelling with Geralt, though she's extremely disgruntled and doesn't understand why they couldn't have stayed at the Witch's Keep. We can see her getting more and more frustrated, and it's clear she feels unheard and ignored by Geralt. Geralt takes Ciri to Melitele, where he introduces her to the priestess Nenke. This is a totally different scene than we've been used to so far. This is a peaceful oasis and a refuge for healing. I think Geralt is here to seek advice on how to make Ciri flourish to her full potential. And they aren't alone, because guess who else is here? Yennefer. However, it's not to seek refuge, but instead to kidnap Ciri in exchange for her powers, as told by the Deathless Mother. Back in Cintra, Fringilla and Francesca's plans are coming through, and their friendship is developing. And when Francesca and Filandrel's baby is born, Fringilla is there by her side. Cahir has to take her aside and remind Fringilla of her path, to find Princess Ciri. When Rience, the fire mage, discovers Ciri at the temple, Yennefer sees her opportunity and tells Geralt she will take care of Ciri and get her to safety. Of course, we know she has another agenda. Still, Geralt trusts her at this point, and we can't help but yell "No!" as she opens the portal for herself and Ciri to escape the flames. The penultimate episode was action-packed to say the least, and we had me on the edge of my seat throughout. There were so many plot twists, it was hard to keep up. We start with Ciri and Yennefer coming out the other end of the portal to the hut from Season 1, a place Ciri once considered a safe haven. However, this is not the case anymore, as Rience has already paid it a visit and left no survivors. Ciri, consumed by grief and concern for Geralt's safety after leaving him behind, feels alone and vulnerable, and Yennefer knows she can use this to convince Ciri she knows where Geralt might be. Of course, this is a lie, and she's actually leading her to the Deathless Mother. En route, they come across a collapsed bridge, and Yennefer tries to get Ciri to use her powers to fix it by teaching her an incantation. However, this is too much for the young princess, and despite her efforts, she cannot complete the spell and begins to bleed from her eyes. Frustrated, angry, and in pain, Ciri screams, and we all know what happens when she does that. Suspecting Yennefer's actions, Geralt heads out on a mission with Jaskier to find and rescue Ciri. To say the end of the episode is a cliffhanger is an understatement, as we wait to see what lies ahead for Geralt and Ciri. In the final episode, the scene opens with the pair, Yennefer and Geralt, riding alongside one another in a bid to save Ciri. After Yennefer had a change of heart, she now wishes to rescue the child she's grown to bond with, and things are looking good for the princess, back as she's been possessed by Volomir, aka the Deathless Mother. Ciri is being distracted in her thoughts by visions of her old life, her grandparents, friends, and even dead parents, in a clever attempt to divert her attention from the fact her body has been taken over by a power-thirsty demon. Ciri, or should I say the Deathless Mother, is attacking the witches, and despite Geralt's reasoning, he cannot get through. Meanwhile, Filandrel and Francesca learn that Dijkstra and Amir are the ones responsible for the murder of their newborn baby, and seek revenge by killing innocent babies throughout the town using powerful magic. Back with the demon, and Yennefer has created a serum to try and free Ciri. Of course, this takes a little longer than it should have without the use of her magic. Geralt even offers to sacrifice herself to the demon in place of Ciri, but the Deathless Mother is a force not to be reckoned with. Eventually, after an intense battle between reality and another dimension, Ciri hears the witch's calls and gains the strength to leave her thoughts and parents where they should be, in imagination, and go back fight alongside Geralt to beat the Deathless Mother. As if that wasn't enough, the episode ends with the reveal of Emhyr being Ciri's real father, the Emperor of Nilfgaard, which explains the initial attack on Cintra. Clearly, Emhyr wanted his powerful daughter to himself, and probably not for the right reasons. But I'm sure we will find out more in Season 3, and I, for one, cannot wait. And that's a wrap for Season 2 of The Witcher. If you enjoyed that recap, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out a lot, and we'll be coming back with some more recaps next week.